welcome back to Starlight Talks. I'm here with my mom.
Hi, I'm Gail Carrier. Call us Mom.
This week we're talking about the holidays because it's November now, so we have all those big holidays coming up. And for those of us on the spectrum, it can be a lot. So we're going to talk about our journey with dealing with the holidays and the survival kit that we came up with. Hopefully it'll help you guys too. So I'll do my intro again. Go to artism.com and check out all the goodies available on that website. From the blog where I write about living on the spectrum, my mom has just written an article about surviving the holidays on there, so you can check out a written form if you need that. We have all of our great services on there, including life maps, support groups, and our social program we have,
and
mentorship. Yeah. And we have an event coming up, a pizza and game night for teens and adults this weekend, next weekend. So check out those dates and sign up. Register for those. Hi, Richard. Thank you for joining. And this live stream called Starlight Talks, I try to keep it related to autism and try to get guests on here. I'm working on getting some new guests. Hopefully soon. It's hard to come up with a new topic and a new guest every week, but I'm working on it. I do these live streams every Wednesday at 7 Pacific Standard Time. So come back next week for another one. And I love to interact with you guys, so leave any questions you have. It can be related to the topic or not, whatever you have on your mind. We'll try to discuss it. Yeah. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about surviving the holidays. So, yeah. I remember when I was little, I would get so excited about the holidays, and then it would always be a letdown where I'd be like really bummed out. And it's like, for some reason, it was always unforeseen. And
But what bummed you
I
out?
don't know. It was like my expectation and the reality didn't match. We're just like assumed like everyone's gonna get along, and I made like these really easy wish lists that was like even had links to things, and like and I never got anything from that list from extended family. You guys
I was
were
like, great. I really tried to fill them.
I mean, at our house it was really nice, but like when we went out for like, or had a bunch of people come over, it was like I felt like I didn't get attention, or I felt like there was fighting, or I don't know. It just like there was always something that bummed me out, where I was like, I just felt like I wasn't part of it, or like I wasn't understanding all the traditions that everyone else was into, or I would get overwhelmed and feel really tired or sick and ended up sleeping through stuff, or getting really emotional and just wanting to go back home. And so yeah, I remember that when I was little.
So I wanna state something that also, we didn't know Lily and her twin sister had autism until they were 16. So a lot of things that they were doing.
And I had selective mutism too.
Yeah. And a lot of things that they were doing and we were doing, had I known they had autism, had we known, we would have definitely done things differently. But so a lot of the things we did, we didn't know. But what we figured out through trial and error and lots of error, lots and lots of error, is building that trust. I think it always kind of comes down to when I make a plan, keeping to it. If she wanted to go home from a party, whether it was a birthday party or a holiday party, I always tried to push that extra. Okay, you know what? Can we stay 15 more minutes? Can we stay a half hour more? You're doing really great. And so I always pushed that extra. And what I hadn't realized, which when Chloe was able to articulate later, when she was telling me I need to leave, she had already hit that wall. And so that's when a meltdown might happen, or a withdrawal, or her just being uncomfortable. So as she got older, and especially after the diagnosis, and we understood when she said, okay, we always had we'd start to have an exit plan. So when
like now, if it's like a family event, a lot of times they're like, you can use this room to like recover and nap and recharge, whatever you need to do. There's a room available a lot of times now where that wasn't.
Well, and even if it was looked at very differently. So we've been very open with our journey and the diagnosis with the family and the world, obviously, because here we're talking to you. But if Chloe was like, I need to go lay down, they're like, what's wrong? Why doesn't she want to be with us? Whether it was the grandparents or the cousins or the aunts or uncles or even myself, why doesn't she want to be part of the family? So we really were taking it as an affront that she was doing it on purpose, that she wanted to get her way. We really, at that time, had no idea what was going on and took it personally. And so even now, I don't. I mean, there may be some family members that do, but I know when I talk to parents, when I do coaching, I really have to let them know when we go, they're not doing this on purpose. They're not doing this to hurt your feelings. Listen to the why. And sometimes when you figure out the why, okay, that grandma's house is really loud, everybody's drinking, there's, so you come up with a plan. Okay, if we go at the beginning of the night and, maybe we have dinner and you leave right after dinner before it really gets loud, and you just come up with a plan. I think that's really...
Yeah, I remember, I think it was around middle school when I started putting headphones in to like block out noise, and family members even would ask me what I was listening to. And I'm like, I'm not listening to anything. I'm listening to you. But they thought because I had my headphones in, I was being rude and not listening. I was like, I was blocking out all the access, right? All the extra stuff. Like people, like just starting there, when I was trying to be part of everything, they thought it was rude because they weren't used to that. So,
well, because a lot of neurotypical kids will be like, oh, I'm at grandma's and they are listening to music. Or
like, I remember putting like in my ear, it wasn't plugged into anything. I was holding the end up, like, look, I'm not listening to anything. I mean, now they have the wireless ones, so you won't. But then it was like you only could use wired one. The wireless ones were super expensive, so like a 13-year-old's not gonna have those. But I had those like, and there was no iPod or phone or whatever connected to the end. It was just there's just a wire hanging down, and people were still like, what are you listening to? And I was like, I'm not. I'm listening to you. Just trying to block out noise. And people thought that was rude. And would be, I'm talking to you, take those out. I'm like, no, I can't hear you when I take them out. So it takes a while it took my family years to understand that kind of stuff, and like and there's people who still don't, and I try to avoid those people.
Yeah.
You know, but like I think one of the biggest stressors of the holiday isn't like the holiday itself, it's like the build up to the holidays. Like, okay, there's so much stress of like getting all the presents and setting up and like all the preparation that you're exhausted before it's even started. So, and everyone's on edge and anxious, and like you're feeling everyone else's emotions. And so even before it started, and then we had deaths around the time of the holidays a couple of times. So like there's always that, oh, it's the first Christmas without this person, or it's like, why is this family decided to go on vacation? Like there's always those kind of things that like people have that are under the surface that like autistic people like don't understand that passive aggressive stuff. And so when people aren't saying stuff out loud, you're like, why is the room so uncomfortable? Why is there so much stress before we've even had the party yet? So starting there, like you're out of spoons before the party's even started, before we had our Thanksgiving dinner or had our Christmas gift sharing or whatever. So it's important to make sure you're checking on like your kid or yourself, like
even
before, because if you're going into it with 2 spoons or no spoons, like then you're done. So making sure you keep recharging before you push yourself over the limit. Yeah.
And I mean, when it comes to the event, so we have so many picky ears in our our population.
Yeah,
and
allergies
and making sure, you know what, it's okay if you don't eat the turkey and you only eat the bread
or you bring your own food.
Or you bring something, and being okay with that. It as a parent will make your child
if your kid only eats peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and it's Thanksgiving, they can still eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like they just like I've talked about this a lot. Like people who are different still want to be included, but they need to be included differently because they're different. So we want to be at the table, but we don't want to eat the same thing, or we need a different.
And to be made to feel bad, because you're not going to eat the green bean casserole, and you're not going to eat, Grandma made. Or I keep saying grandma. Our grandma's wonderful. I'm just using that as an example. Jean,
grandma or aunt. I spent all day making this for you. Why aren't you eating it? Those kind of comments.
Yes.
They bother. It's not like we don't want to be part of it. It's like we have differences. And especially sensory-wise or anxiety-wise, trying something new or knowing like what that tastes like or feels like, that takes a lot of spoons to eat something out of the routine. And so that could be overwhelming when you'd rather use your spoons to like have a conversation or do dance or I don't know what your traditions are, but to be part of things. And so if you need a different kind of, if you can't wear your suit or you can't wear a dress or you can't, but you still want to go and be part of it, like picking on those things, it can be really hurtful because it's like how it takes a lot of effort to show up. And then you're like, oh, but you didn't wear the right shoes and you're not trying the food I made. It's like, but I'm here and that was really, really hard to do. And that should be enough, right? That your family showed up like that. So, and I know like there's so many families with people on the spectrum who've decided they can't take them to extended family events because they just don't get it, and it's so much work. And I get that to an extent because it is so much work to go to parties, go around people who just don't 100% get it. And they don't live that life the way that parents do. And even parents don't get it,
there's
and
a
they
lot-
are
there's-
living their life,
Yeah.
So it's easy for someone who only sees you a couple of times a year to like not get it, because it's such a different way of existing and processing, and that it can seem so foreign. But yeah, we have some comments. Meredith says it takes a shift of how people interpret the situation when they have correct information and are open.
Yeah, I mean, we had that in our home. The family members that didn't get why Lillian and Chloe wouldn't come running up to them and greet them. Hi, I'm so glad to see you. My youngest is neurotypical, so she ran up to everybody. She would run up and hug, but they didn't. And they would pull me aside. Why is she doing that? Why won't she come say hi? And I'm like, be the grown up. Go up to them. They were still kids, okay? They weren't 23. And I'm like, if you talk to her, if you say, hey, Chloe, can I have a hug? She will give you a hug. But she might not initiate it when she was younger. And they would take offense at that. And it was really hard because again, I didn't have the diagnosis, but I knew my daughters. And I would say, I don't know why. I do not know why they're not going to come up to you and give you that hug. But they're not. They're not. So you need to be the grown-up and make the initiative. And it was tough. But once we got the diagnosis, and we explained to family members what was going on, our family was much more accepting and understanding and checked in with you more, right? Mm-hmm. To see how you were doing and are you okay and do you need anything? And not in a hovering way, but in a real genuine caring way. So for us, they still made mistakes, but they were trying, and definitely more accepting of Lillian and Chloe, and what used to be behaviors that upset them or offended them now didn't. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Were there questions?
Not questions, just comments.
Okay.
Meredith says that a lot of older people don't get it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think it depends, because I found that I've had a lot of older people really get it. I've found more of like middle-aged people don't get it. I don't know why. But like,
well, for us too, we had family members that recognized some of the autism in themselves. Yes. So,
but like, I've had teachers, and I feel like the older teachers not necessarily understood what autism was, but like just were like, yeah, I'm supposed to accommodate that, and like did it.
Mm-hmm.
Where like some of the younger teachers, like who supposedly had like the new information about autism, and when they studied to be a teacher, didn't follow the IEP, and I found that to be the case, and I don't know. But I mean, I'm sure it depends on where you live, who you're around. So I don't want to be like, this whole age doesn't get it. But like, just different people get it, other people don't. And find people who do and go stay with them.
But not all of us have that when we're having it, especially when it comes to the holidays. It is, we have to go to this person's house every year. And
like, normally there's like one or two people in your family, or there should be like that, have your back and like stay around them, you know? Make sure that you're getting that support because you need that, where you can't expect the people who don't get it to just change and get it, no matter how many times you explain it. And so keeping a distance, not like literally, but like distancing yourself from that and keeping your expectations.
Well, and that goes back to the tool,
you know?
to the toolkit. So if you go prepared with your headphones, or the food that you like, or whatever it is that you need, if it's always cold there, make sure you have a jacket. If it's always hot, make sure you can take off layers, kind of front loading. Not that you have to, and you don't want to sit there and anticipate every problem you're going to have. I don't mean that, but some of the things that that might make you or your child uncomfortable, being able to kind of set that up so they know what to do, and you know what to do.
Yeah. And just being okay with having a different sort of Christmas than
and if something goes wrong, okay?
Yeah.
When you're there, whatever it is that breaks down where your child may have, or you have if it is a meltdown or it's overstimulation or whatever, just go, okay, this is happening. And as a parent, okay, what are we going to do? What can I do? And just deal with it.
You know how your kid is every other day of the year. It's like, it's not going to miraculously all go away and be perfect just because it's Christmas, just because it's Thanksgiving, just because it's Hanukkah or whatever holiday you're celebrating. So you're still dealing with the same things, and it's a holiday. So it's like putting that in perspective and being like, we're going to have an autism holiday instead of like whatever you like. There's this supposed to where we're like, we all sit at the table and then we go around the table and say thanks for what we're grateful for Thanksgiving. Like, if that doesn't happen and instead you can't have turkey for whatever reason, you just make it your own tradition. Like, everybody likes carrots, so we shape our carrots into little feathers like turkeys. Like, I don't know. Just make it your own. Like, you start new traditions that work instead of trying to force ones that don't, that you feel like you're supposed to be doing. Like, make it comfortable for everyone, like, so that everyone feels like they can be there and they're supported, and it's about family time, and this person is part of your family. And so,
and recognize as parents, some of our what she may be feeling is our angst about the family. Not all of us get along, and not all of us, there's tension that has nothing to do with you being having autism or your child having autism. Okay, it has to do with the family dynamic that you may have grown up in, and just recognizing that your child really feels all of that. Okay, so if I'm anxious because me and Aunt Betty haven't talked in 20 years and she's going to be there, she feels that.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're little. Your parents are your rock, and if they're not stable, you're not stable. So if my parents are angry or upset or tense, I'm going to be unstable. I could feel that. So Richard said, I think the extra stimulus could make things difficult. And so, we should talk about that a little bit. In case you're unaware, those of us on the spectrum experience the sensory world very differently. That's taste, touch, sound, smell, all of those kind of things. Even time and all that kind of stuff differently. But like, we either are hyposensitive or hypersensitive to those things. So that means that we either need a lot of stimulus or stimulus overwhelms us. So that's why I was talking about certain foods could be overwhelming taste, touch, smell of it, and that's why we can't eat it, because it's actually painful. It eating it is painful. So that beyond just like the taste of it, the smell of it can overwhelm us. The texture of it, the clothes on our bodies, the temperature of the room. A lot of us don't like skin on skin contact, all those kind of things. So when you're in a room with that you're not used to, that has a lot of noise, that has a lot of
Smells.
stimulus. And the holidays is like, it has a lot of smells. It has flashing lights. It has, Christmas trees, ornaments, like a lot of color, a lot of light, a lot of people, a lot of noise. So it's very overstimulating. And so if you don't crave that kind of stimulus, if you're sensitive to that, that can be really overwhelming and take a lot out of you. And so I know neurotypicals love to have their background music on, and they love to have, those kind of things, because it makes them comfortable. But those kind of things make those of us on the spectrum very uncomfortable and very hard to focus on conversation. And so if you have someone who's on the spectrum and you're trying to talk to them and they're just like not getting it, it could be as simple as like, there's too much noise, so I can't understand you, I'm not processing this, versus I'm not listening to you. And the body tends to shut down when it's overwhelmed, so it just so that's
it's real.
That's so real during the holidays. And Meredith says it's worth the effort to help family and those special to us understand. As a parent, we come to realize that deeply held beliefs about family gatherings or pressures to conform. Now you have to reevaluate. Yeah, that's
that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about some of our expectations. Chloe talked about her expectations of what she was hoping the holidays would be beforehand. Well, we also have our own, and sometimes we just have to change what that expectation is. And it doesn't mean lowering it. It doesn't mean that. It's just making our expectation a new expectation. Because I don't think you should lower your expectations of having a nice holiday. Okay, you just are going to have, it may not be the traditional one that you grew up in, and being okay with that, being okay with your new normal, new meaning new from when you grew up.
If you like decorating the tree with your family, but you have someone on the spectrum who can't stand flashing lights and bright lights, maybe you can't put lights on your Christmas tree, and that's okay. Maybe you have a kid who can't eat, is very picky about what they eat, and you can't make like the big feast that you want to make, for them. Instead, you have to make them peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and maybe they don't like surprise gifts. Some kids don't like not knowing what's in the gifts. Like, there's so many things, like that but it doesn't mean you can't have like a nice,
wonderful
time.
holiday.
You just make sure that everyone's happy, because it's definitely not fun if someone's melting down, and that ruins it for everybody. And then blaming it on them, it's like, when it's out of their control. Like, everyone wants to be part of it and include it. Mr. Right, there are a lot of older ones that are gracious and understanding. It totally depends on the person. Yeah.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. How many holiday gatherings have you had to make a quicker exit because Chloe or Lillian weren't able to stay? We have learned to sometimes take 2 cars.
Yeah, we definitely took 2 cars to many events, and we would have a plan. Okay. A lot of times it was based if we were at my husband's family, I would take the girls so he could spend more time with his family and vice versa. But we definitely left early, or one of us left early a lot of times.
Mhm.
And, now that they're older, they can Uber home too.
Mhm.
So
I remember when we were little, we did a lot of stuff at restaurants.
Mhm.
And Dad would take us
Mhm.
outside and go for a walk because we couldn't handle just sitting there for
3 hours, 4 hours, at family functions.
And like we were really little when we were doing this.
And they were fantastic at sitting
Yeah.
for a really long time, Lillian and Chloe, compared to most kids. Okay,
Like on your side,
yeah,
we didn't have anyone our age, any cousins. We did over in Boston.
Yeah.
But here, so they only came once in a while for the holidays. So where our younger cousins came later, so we were like, when we were really little, there wasn't really anyone for us to hang out with, and so that could be really tough. And so
I had a bag of things to color and little things they could play at the table, and that really did work for them. To a degree, but I think also Daddy needed to get up and walk around, so it worked out really well for him to take them out.
And especially we didn't know, just getting out of that sensory environment of the restaurant for the one going outside where it's quiet. It was very helpful, and doing that and then coming back when the food, you'd like text or call like the food's here, and we come back and sit down and we eat with everybody.
There was no texting when you were little.
I don't know.
But I had to go I had to go out of the restaurant.
I didn't have a phone. See, someone contacted Dad and he somehow knew to bring us back. Or it was like the waiter said, "Oh, we'll be out in like 30 minutes." I don't know.
But we definitely had extra exit strategies, and then and we also would talk about, okay, so up front, you guys, again, after 16, so they would say, okay, I can go for 2 hours. I know I can go for 2 hours. I'll let you know if I could stay longer. And at that 2 hours, I'm like, okay, so we would have a plan even beforehand that they had to leave. And so one of us would know that was the case. And just knowing that sometimes you could stay longer, knowing that when you would come. And there goes that trust, because we built up that trust when I stopped, like I said earlier, trying to push, okay, another half hour, that when she said, okay, I got to go, I'm like, okay, we're leaving. And I stopped doing our half hour goodbyes, which also happened a lot at first, where we would say 2 hours, but then it really was 2 hours and 2.5 hours, because I had to say goodbye to everybody. So we really stopped that. I'm just like, okay, just tell everybody we had to leave. So Meredith, that's kind of, it definitely happens. But like I said, as they get older, they can leave on their own, and then we can stay. Or they can stay and we can go.
Yeah, because we'll go off with our cousin and do something, smaller, and then the aunts and uncles or the grandparents, they'll all go do something else. So like we, which has been nicer.
Yeah,
because then it gets smaller, and we've been able to do more of that kind of stuff. And so holidays have gotten nicer getting older, in some ways. Just feeling like I have more of a say and people are gonna listen. And I'm like my cousins and family members. I have different family members that really get it, and they stand up for me, and like
Mhm.
it feels really good because, like, the people who used to be harsh to me, like, get it now.
Yeah.
Because they've dealt with me for 23 years, and like it took them a while, but they came around. But yeah, it was a lot harder when I was little, especially before the diagnosis. Like, just myself not understanding what I was feeling and why I couldn't do what everyone else was doing.
I remember, oh my gosh, we went to a party. You might have been too little to remember. And you and Lillian both had such a meltdown, and I was by myself and literally carrying both of you under my arms as they're screaming. And I'm walking through, because it was like more like a block party, birthday party. And I'm walking through the crowd. And everybody's going, "It's okay, we've been there." And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. It was, oh my God. I think it was yeah, I think you were too little. And again, I didn't know anything that was triggering them.
Leaving the table right after eating or reading a Kindle at the table seems to be a must. So I didn't have tablets or like that kind of stuff. That didn't come out till like middle school for me. But I had books, like physical books, that I brought to everywhere. And that seemed to be more acceptable than tablets and computers. And that I used that to block out and to focus on something. We used to take family vacations, and I would take that to the restaurant and the dinner. While everyone ate dinner, I was reading that to block out all the noise, stimuli, and that was really helpful for me. And it was really great because then people would ask me about my book, and I could talk about the book, and that was a really safe topic for me. Like, where like the Kindles and the tablets and that, like, people get so upset about that stuff. But I think it can be a useful tool if it's used right. As long as you're not like taking a kid who's trying to be social and shoving that in there.
Because we have seen that.
Because we've seen that.
We have seen that.
The people who believe kids should be silent and like, I'm having a grown-up conversation, you watch your shows. That as long as it's used to the right thing.
I can't read. Sorry, I have to put my glasses on.
I don't know what that's referring to. Marilyn said, "You look so strong and pretty." Oh, thank you. Don't know who you're referring to, but we both say thank you. Mary said, "What age did you get diagnosed, if you don't mind me asking?" So I was misdiagnosed with ADD and OCD around 12, 13-ish. And then I was diagnosed properly with autism when I was 16. So
we call it our crooked road to the autism party. Yeah, it was a crooked journey. But we got here. And, really for us, when we got the diagnosis, it was like, oh, that makes so much sense. But if it's not in your wheelhouse, if you don't have all the information, autism or Asperger's is what they were diagnosed with. It just wasn't in my field of vision to know or to look for. It also complicated things too, I'm sure, because they were twins. So they're really shy. They didn't play with, they weren't good in groups. They would just pair off. So is it a twin thing?
Yeah. So
it complicated
So
seeing
instead
things.
of like, oh, this person also has autism, that's why I'm hanging out with them. Because I get them, it's like, oh, they're twins, so they like each other more than other people.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that a lot of my childhood friends had autism because we understood each other. So we all weren't diagnosed, and now we all like have the same or similar diagnoses.
Which is a whole
yeah.
other story about girls, which
Yes.
we will do I think we should do a whole thing on
We
girls.
kind of done gender, but we can
Okay.
cover it again. It's fascinating how like one of the traits of autism is our social norms are completely different, and that includes gender. We don't understand neurotypical gender. It is a very different thing. And so growing up, people are like, that's a girl thing, that's a boy thing, and we're like, what? We don't see it, those differences in gender. We do see some differences in gender, but they're different than what the neurotypicals see.
But not that girls should play this, boys should play that.
We didn't see friendship being one gender, and like a lot of times, those on the spectrum, boys tend to have more friends who are girls, and girls tend to have more friends that are boys at a younger age, and then as they get older, it might switch. But it's interesting to me because the way the social norms work for boys and girls in elementary school age are super different from each other, and so the way bullying works is super different from each other. So all of that affects those on the spectrum very differently, and based on that is how they start to form social relationships and learn how to communicate. And so boys and girls on the spectrum can have very different social skills because of that, and are drawn to very different people because of that. And then we have a huge trans population and a huge gay population that also tends to screw things up. Which I find really interesting.
I do too. I'm fascinated by it. And I know it's starting to change, and that's why, part of that they say that autism is on the rise is I personally don't believe it's on the rise. I believe it's better diagnosed. You've now absorbed Asperger's.
I've seen all these memes now because.
Can I finish my thought?
Yes. But it's like because we just discovered autism 30 years ago, I think, or at least gave it the name autism. And so it's like, oh, the past 30 years we've had a spike in autism, is like a lot of studies say. And then there's like the meme that's like, but we discovered the moon at a certain point. Didn't mean it didn't exist before then.
Yes.
There's like all those kind of things. Well, we discovered, this species, but it didn't mean it didn't,
Exactly.
It
got Asperger's got absorbed into the DSM-5, which is the autism diagnosis. So you just added a whole population.
People over 30 years old are being diagnosed.
That are finally being diagnosed, right. More girls are being diagnosed. So the diagnostic process is better. Mm-hmm. But it's still very slow with girls. And I hope that changes. I know they're talking about changing the diagnostic procedure, the actual testing. Literally, autism was thought to be only boys for decades. The girls didn't even have it. So
Marilyn says, my boy was 4 when diagnosed, and I was devastated. That's something I find interesting too. The younger diagnosis comes with this sadness, where like the older diagnosis, like mine, was a relief because we didn't know for so long. And so it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have autism. Where like when it's younger, I see a lot of, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Like it's viewed so differently because I struggled for so long before I got the diagnosis. Like, okay, now we can do something about it. Where when it's caught younger, it's like, oh, I had all these hopes and dreams that they were going to be this way and they're that way.
I also think as parents, you're given the diagnosis by the doctor and they tell us all the things
scary.
it's really scary what they tell us. I mean, all the things your child will probably never do. Never going to go to college, never going to get married, never going to move out of your house. And if they do, you're going to have someone help them and support them and be prepared to support them for the rest of your life. So there's all this freaking noise that these professionals have already given us parents and told you your child is not going to succeed at A, B, C, and D. And so hearing that at 4, they've already predicted your child's life. And that is heartbreaking and devastating. And I so get when I meet these parents why they feel that way. And so one of the things that I really try to do when we do parent coaching is try to get that noise out of your head.
And they make you focus on the negatives and never the positives.
And that was the next
where
thing,
like so many people I meet are comparing themselves to the neurotypicals. It's like, oh, I'm not meeting the same milestones that these people are meeting. They're getting girlfriends and they're getting married and they're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but they don't have the hyper focus you have and how much knowledge you have on a certain subject.
Right.
And they don't have, like these certain things that you have, that I have, that give us that make us different, and like we have gifts along with.
Yes. And that's what we try to really, that's what we focus in on at Autism is what are you or your child's strengths. Okay, let's build upon those. Let's focus on those. We know there are challenges and we're going to address them, but let's focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy and what makes you happy. And let's see if we can help you get to a place of thriving, doing what you love and what your expertise is in. And so that's really, I think, heartbreaking that the medical profession also does that to us parents when there is an early diagnosis.
Anne asked, what are the signs of Asperger's? I made a live stream with my twin sister where we actually talked about what is autism, what are the traits of autism. It's called something like that. Go look that up. Because I talk about it. We talked about it for like an hour and a half or something. So that's really useful.
So Asperger's does fall under autism. Okay.
Yes.
So we're having a language problem because if you were diagnosed before the DSM-5, which I think came out 4 years ago, you were diagnosed with Asperger's. If you're diagnosed today, you're diagnosed with autism. So
yeah, I think I was the last year where my diagnosis actually said Asperger's/autism. I think it was like I had both.
So when we talk, it's very confusing because we want to make sure that we're getting everybody. Like I said, because if I say Asperger's, those who were diagnosed with autism would be like, that's not me.
Just recently, other countries outside the U.S. have transitioned from Asperger's to autism as well. Asperger's is also under the umbrella. I don't know which ones, but I believe it's now universal that Asperger's is under the umbrella of autism.
But it's still a diagnosis.
But if you got Asperger's before, it's okay to use that.
Yes.
If you've been using that for years, you don't have to switch to say autism.
I just say both. I try to because some of our population only relates to Asperger's and some only relate to autism. And
Yeah, when I
there's
say
levels of autism now.
yeah, I
And
don't
I'm
like
not
using
gonna,
the
and I
levels.
don't want to go, oh, you're level 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just, so we're having a language problem.
Yeah. So yeah, Asperger's originally was, I believe, level 1. So if you look at level 1, all the traits of whatever that is, but so Anna asks your mom, I am nervous for my little one. He's 4 years old. He's going to kindergarten. He has autism. What was your experience when your daughter went to kindergarten?
Um,
What was your pet?
okay, so when they started, their birthdays are in October. So there was a pre-K program where we lived. So they went to the pre-K program before kindergarten. So they actually started kindergarten when they were 5, just shy of 6. And I think for them that was really, really good. Regardless of if there was that pre-K program, I would have not held them back. I would have just had them in preschool one more year, and then had them go to kindergarten. And for them, kindergarten was fine. They really, you did well in school through elementary school, academically and socially, for the most part.
Yeah.
They didn't have tons of friends. They had 1 or 2 friends, and I was okay with that. We didn't have any kind of IEP or 504 plan because we didn't know anything. But as far as academically, they did well. It wasn't until middle school where academically and socially things kind of fell apart. Chloe's has slow processing, so she was missing a lot of things, and we couldn't figure out why. One of the things, I would quiz her orally, and she would get everything. She knew all the answers, but when she went to take a test, she was failing them. She was getting D's and F's, and we just couldn't figure out the correlation. And so at that point, we moved them to a private school that was much smaller. I think, going back to your question with a little one, small classes are really important. Checking in on him, not going into the class. Checking in with him. Better way of phrasing it. Of how he's doing, and you'll see if he's falling behind, and then you'll know why. Is it slow processing? Is it because sometimes it's just change? Now that you have the diagnosis, you can have an IEP and you can find out what he needs. At kindergarten, I'm not sure what they would do, except for if he's a visual learner, maybe they would help
breaking things
breaking
into
things
a little
down.
bit smaller steps, and those kind of things.
Lots of steps were hard. It was always, and even we would do that when we would work with you.
Well, I know, like, there were, I felt like there were rules that just weren't stated out loud. Those are the things that that got me, where I felt like I got yelled at and students got yelled at for breaking rules that we were never told about. Like, we weren't allowed to move furniture in the room, and like, if we were like wanted to make a fort out of a table or something, like the first few days, like I remember students getting in trouble for doing that kind of stuff. And the tables were really small, and it seemed like they were meant for us, and they're like, don't move the table, like, instead of like, here's the rules of this classroom, you don't move the furniture. Like, there was just stuff like that where I felt like, especially with autism, I missed more than other people. about what the rules of
The
a classroom is.
and the unwritten social rules.
Yeah, the
They're-
unwritten social,
Yeah.
those kind of things, like everything needs to be blatant, obvious, and straightforward for those of us on the spectrum. And
sarcasm.
Yeah.
So if he's not getting
jokes, right over my head.
Yeah.
That's what that was. Yeah, just having everything really explained and doubly explained.
Just looking at some questions.
If you know of any school-based high school programs that are strength interest-based, let us know. Not in particular. Homeschool.
So that's the other thing is when the girls were younger and we were doing this transitioning of public school to private school, I think that when homeschooling was not what it is today, the options out there weren't as big. I think if I had to do it over again, I think at least in high school, I would have homeschooled you guys. I think they would have thrived with homeschooling. And
the biggest thing that I think homeschooling would help me with is, even like especially in the older years, even when I had free time, I was exhausted. So when we had breaks for lunch, and I was so exhausted from the day that I didn't want to spend my spoons like talking to my friends and like hanging out, really like doing big social things. And so I didn't do much of that, and because I had to prepare to go back to class, and then I would come home and just want to go to bed. Where I feel like with homeschooling, I would have had more spoons to go do social things. And that was something that like people didn't get, that I was like, I can't go to the party, I'm exhausted, I can't go to extracurriculars that I would love to go to, my art, my film, all that stuff. It was just too tiring to just do the regular classwork. So I think being homeschooled, even though it's not as social, I feel like I would have been more social if that makes sense. Because I know that's like some people's like biggest thing about not wanting to do it is like, my kid's already not social and they're around people all day. It's like, yeah, they're around too much all day. So they like, I was really through elementary school, I was mute. So how was I supposed to make friends? Like people were like, oh, she's cute, and like because she doesn't talk, and like hung out with me, but like we couldn't connect because I was so exhausted I couldn't talk. Where if I was able to like do homeschool, where there was less sensory and less all that kind of stuff to exhaust me, I feel like after school I could go make friends and hang out.
The other thing that as parents we really need to be aware of is that their mental health is so much more important than the academics.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to get there. But it's if they're absolutely miserable, falling apart, can't get up in the morning and go to school, or go to school and are just miserable. And I don't mean just like a normal teenager, okay, miserable who hates school, actual depression, actual anxiety, actual, seriously, mental health issues. And that's so much more important. Get them out of that school and take care of your child. If they don't graduate on the schedule of all their friends, so be it. It's so much more important for them to be happy and to be healthy. And we forget about that because we get caught up in what we're supposed to be doing. And again, all those professionals, the educators, the doctors, you know, I mean, I don't know. Lillian has Crohn's disease as well. And I would get these nasty letters that she wasn't in school and they were going to report me to social services because she had missed so much school. And I mean, it's terrifying. I'm laughing now, but it was terrifying. I remember calling my girlfriend that's an attorney. I'm like, what is going on? What kind of medical information do I need to get? And finally, I talked to someone who told me about home hospital care. The school wasn't going to tell me about this. Okay. Home hospital care was basically they had someone come to the house, and she was homeschooled, and she was homeschooled for almost a year and a half, but paid for by the school district. But no one tells you that. But she had complications with her Crohn's disease. I have to think that there are ways with the autism that you can get that as well if needed. But taking care of your mental health and health overall well-being is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Robin says that her son gets very upset when the doctor says he is autistic now at age 19. He was diagnosed with Asperger's in 3rd grade. So yeah, so they tell him they don't use the term Asperger's anymore. It's like, that's like so.
Yeah,
I don't understand. There's like a lot. There's even people part of the actual autism community who's like, you shouldn't use Asperger's. But like, if you self-identify and have for years with this term, it's so petty not to just let someone identify the way they want to identify. It's like saying, I'm not going to call you queer, I'm going to call you gay if you identify as queer. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, it's part of you.
I mean, can you tell the doctor, you know what, I understand that on paper he has autism, but this really upsets him, and can we not do that? Can we just, you want to call it the A? You have A, you know what I mean? But I mean, you know, for his, again, going back to, you know, his well-being, can we call it Asperger's today?
Yeah.
Your doctor should respect that. And if he doesn't, you know what? Maybe you need a new doctor.
You can identify however you want.
Exactly. And that's you can tell. I mean, I know at 19, you can tell, look, I don't give a crap what this doctor says. You have Asperger's. We know, you know it, I know it. Kind of reinforce it that way. Kind of like with your writing. I remember this in 1st grade. Chloe made her E's, right? It was an E. You made a C with a line. And her 1st grade teacher was just like, yeah. And she's like, she has to write it more rounded.
Has to start here and then go around.
And it was, I'm like, do you know it's an E? She's like, yes, I know it's an E, but it's incorrect. And she was marked down every time. So I remember telling her, Chloe, I don't understand this either. It's just stupid. But for this year, for this one class, write it that way. Anywhere else, write it the way you want it. Okay? Because it's a beautiful E.
Jacob says hi. Hi, my Jacob. Hi. What about structured and unstructured environment for people with autism? Yeah, definitely structure is very helpful. I think structure is helpful for everyone. Yeah. But yeah, knowing the schedule. I love the classrooms. I had the schedule. It's like, this is everything you're doing for the day.
Having a schedule. I like knowing what I'm doing. I like structure.
So I can prepare for that. So like, yeah, structure is important, and throwing surprises in there just it's not good. Are Chloe and Lillian on any meds for depression or anxiety? I don't know if I want to go into
I know.
to meds. It's kind of personal, but yeah, if meds are for you,
I was just gonna say,
great, but make sure you're being checked out by a doctor.
yeah, I think meds definitely have a place and definitely are beneficial and have made a difference when used properly. But I also would check them all, periodically, because especially as they're young and their bodies are changing, so does their biology. And just check it. But I think that if it helps, again, your well-being, do it. If taking it also doesn't help your well-being, don't take it.
Yeah. I believe in the placebo effect. So if taking something, if you don't know if that actually works or you just believe it works, that's fine. I mean, we've all I've heard stories of like parents like I'm bringing the monster spray, like it's just some water going. I'm gonna spray the monsters away, like they use bug spray, and like we all like need the placebo effect at different times in our life, so that's fine.
I did it, but with lavender.
Yeah.
So it also helped them sleep.
So like there's like that's fine too. So like whatever works. I'm sure I've talked about depression and mental health in the past. Yeah, I think it was with if you look at Mentality, that podcast.
We should probably start wrapping up. This was great. Thank you so much for all your questions. And it was really fun being on here, and I love talking to you guys, and you guys love talking to Chloe. She's pretty fantastic. We have a lot of things going on at Autism, so check out our website. What do we have? We have next Tuesday, we have our adult pizza and game night. And next Thursday, we have both our parent caregiver coffee in the morning and adult support group at night. And this weekend, if any of you are in Los Angeles, there's Taking Charge Self-Determination Conference going on in Culver City Friday and Saturday. And if you're on Regional Center, they will pay for that. So if any of you are on self-determination, it's going to be just a plethora of information, and we will be there. We're going to have a booth. We are also certified self-determination facilitators, so you can come see us to figure out a plan with your self-determination. And then Chloe is going to she has her art show at Michael's Learning Place. That's Friday,
22nd,
the 22nd and 23rd. She has all her beautiful photography, which is so awesome. You can buy some of that, and a portion of the sales will go to Michael's Learning Place, which is an amazing place you should check out as well. So those are all the goodies besides Chloe's mentoring. She has a mentorship program that she does, our life map.
Yeah, so come back next week as well. I do my live stream every Wednesday, 7 Pacific Standard Time. So same time.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Stay colorful.